Okay guys, start off with, we're going to go through AUD JPY. So if we start off on the weekly time frame, we can see that we had this downwards trend line. So we have one touch, two touch, and then the third touch here. So if we just get rid of these arrows, if anyone doesn't recognize this platform, it's called TradingView. You should really use it if you do any sort of technical analysis at all. It's much cleaner than any of the MT4 charts, and it's just much simpler to use. Okay, so if we move on to the daily, this is sort of where I was looking at last week, and you can see my short trade that I took. So you can see we entered our Fibonacci retracement. We had our golden pocket area around this region here, and then we reversed out. And then when I sent my analysis to my group last week, we was around here. So as you can see, we've had the fake out and the reversal of the 0.71 golden pocket. We've come down, retested this trend line for a third touch, and then that's when we entered a short. So I actually entered a short right on the trend line, and we made around, I think it was 130 pips, I think we made before it started reversing up. So for next week, I'm sort of anticipating the same sort of move, another movement up to the trend line, and then possibly another move downwards. If we do manage to break through the trend line, then I'm expecting a retest. And then once we get that retest, we can look for longs up further. However, with the Australian dollar right now, some pairs you may be looking for longs and some you may be looking for shorts. It depends on the other currency. So I think, Abdul, you had AUD USD that you was looking at in your video, and I think you was looking at it going long, was it? The one you sent yesterday? Yeah, go for it. I say obviously NZD USD and AUD USD correlate very well. So as we'll go on to with my NZD USD, I'm actually in that long. And I know Abdul's looking at AUD USD long as well, so you can see how the two pairs correlate. So obviously with this one, I am looking sort of entering a short again. However, it's important to change your bias if necessary. So if we do break out, we can look for the long. So if we move on to the next pair that I had from last week, which was NZD USD. And then once I've gone through this, I'll let Abdul take you through his AUD USD. So as you can see here, this is my analysis for the current trade that I'm in. But if we just focus on this piece of price action here, we go on to the 4-hour time frame. So we can see here we've got this trend line coming up. We managed to break this trend line and retest a significant level here with an evening star formation. So for those of you who don't know what an evening star formation is, this is a type of candlestick pattern where we have a bullish emerging candle, then we have a spinning top. In this case, it's more, we have sort of a higher wick to the upside, and then we have this bearish candle, so bigger than the previous bullish engulfing, and then from here we can see that the momentum switched from this liquidity area. So you can see here we've got loads of wicks coming through. And then sort of as we come here, we can see it sort of consolidated a little bit here, and then we managed to enter sort of, we entered just off of this candle here, so around on here, and then we actually managed to take a nice profit of around 125 pips. And then what sort of I've been looking at sort of all week and waiting for really is this movement here. So as you can see, if we go on the monthly, which is obviously our highest time frame, we can actually see that we've got one touch, two touch, and then three touches. So what I was looking at here is I wanted to take a long because as we can see, this trend line's come since 2001, and sort of we've had our two touches and our third touch, and as we know, the third touch is sort of the most significant touch that we're going to get. So from here we can see we had this hammer candle coming down, and then now we've got this sort of candle pushing off the bottom trend line. So now if we move on to back onto the weekly, we can see that we actually got into this trade, or people who within the RF community, we actually got onto this trade through my analysis on Slack. We entered right here, so we got quite a nice entry You couldn't really get much better, to be honest. So at the moment we're running around about 80 pips, but we have a take profit, quite a big take profit of 545. So as you can see, we only had a tight stop loss, which is important because it allows our risk to reward to be 21, which is sort of a major level, but as we have so much potential here, there's no reason why we can't aim high. So now if we move back onto the daily, we can sort of go into why I wanted to take this long. So you can see we've got this monthly trend line, we got in here, and now we're sort of breaking above that key level of 0.63000. So we go back onto the 4 hour, we can see we've actually broken through this level, and now we're sort of coming back for that retest. So we've got this nice sort of curve, which we can see reverses sometimes. And then what we'll do is we'll reverse down to our 0.63 key level, and then what I'm looking for is another break. So anyone who's actually not in this trade yet, they could possibly get an entry if we see a nice retest to this 0.63 level. And then if we look on our Fibonacci, we have our golden pocket region around here, so that's where sort of just above is my TP1. So what I've done here is I've sort of notified 4 actual take profit regions that I'd be looking to take some profit out of, which is important, because of course with these swing trades we always want to take as much of our profit out as we can and make sure that we're risk free. So what I'm going to do here is if I just get rid of this fib level, we can see my first TP1 is within this liquidity area here. So what a liquidity zone is, where we've got many wicks, and what this means is there's either a load of buyers or a load of sellers coming into the market. So with this one, that's my first level, and that's sort of my level of this 6-3 level, and I'm going to look to come around about 150 pips up to this level here. And then my second TP is actually using this horizontal ray. So as you can see here, we've got sort of significant resistance level that we're looking to test. TP3 is at a significant psychological level of 0.65724, and then my final take profit, which would be the major one at 500 pips, would be the 0.67654. Of course, it might not reach that because we can see there's a lot of price action going on here, and we can see how impulsive this move was. So price is really coming down. But if we can catch a nice move here, and as our entry was so good, we don't sort of have to worry too much. So with this, we can go on to our last pair that I want to look at before going into sort of this week's analysis is USD JPY. So if I just get rid of this trend line, we can see that we've had major series of correction and impulsive moves. So here you can see impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, correction. Then we have a nice little double top pattern, so 1, 2, and then we have a massive impulse move to downside. And if we move on to here, we can actually see the same sort of things happened. So something we say quite a lot within the markets is to look left. So if we look left, we can see that we've sort of repeated ourselves. So we've broke this trend line here, performed this double top movement, and then we've come down. So we actually got in off of this level here. So we can see this major candle here. We got in around here, and I think we took profit just sort of where this horizontal ray is. And now what we can do for next week is we can actually look at taking a long possibly. The reason why I say about taking a long is because if we look here with our weekly trend line, or even monthly, we can actually see this level's held since 2013. So we've got one touch here, we've kind of got a touch here, but it's not quite there. And then now this is where price come through. And we've seen partly a fake out of this trend line. So we can see price sort of faked out, come back up, and now we've had a major move upside. We've had this little impulsive move to downside this week, and now sort of I'm looking for price sort of come down and sort of push off. So that's USD JPY. Now we're going to sort of move on to this week's analysis, and I'm going to look at the DXY, which is our dollar index. So our dollar index is important because it sort of shows us where we can expect the dollar to move. So if we look on the weekly time frame, focus on this piece of price action here, we can see our key levels are labelled out here, and then what we're looking for is we've got this 96 level where we started this trend. So this trend's been since the last sort of 3-4 months. We've come up, we've not really had too many touches, we've had about 2 touches, and what we can also look at is the price action on the last few days. So we can see a bit clearly here. we can see we've had this one touch, two touch, and now I'm looking for a third touch for this week. So that's sort of what I'm aiming for this week. We can see here we've got a sort of a little trend line here, however it's nothing major. We sort of focus here, we can see this sort of Fibonacci movement. But what's sort of significant for me here is we can see this liquidity area at the top. So then what I'm looking for is, we've had this reversal as this significant liquidity area, we've come down, and now I'm looking for, after making a new high, as we've got sort of noted down here. So if you want to make a note of that, it's quite significant. We've got this new high, as we can see, sort of at 99.66 level, which for the DXY is very, very high. So we've come down, and now we've sort of broke below the significant 99 key level, this psychological level, and now I'm expecting price to come back down to this trend line. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start going through sort of the currency pairs I'm looking for this week. But for my DXY, I'm looking for a very, very downwards move. So coming down to this sort of liquidity area here for about 98.4. So if I show you on the weekly, we can see why I've sort of labelled this as a liquidity area. So you see we have multiple wicks. We have 1 wick, 2 wick, 3 wick, this big wick here for the 4th wick, and then now we're sort of coming to look to come retest this level here. So if we can retest here, we'll see either one or two things. We can either see a retest of this level, so it's be the third touch in the liquidity area, and we look to make a move up again, possibly reaching a high of 100, or we could actually break below and then look for a massive move to the downside. So now I'm going to move on to Australian dollar CAD. So this one I'm actually looking at taking a long position on. The reason why I say this is because if we start on the weekly, we can see we've got this downtrend. We've got one touch, two touch, and then sort of here we've sort of had a little fake out. So we've had this fake out, pull the buyers into the market, and then straight away we can see the next week we've got a massive hammer candle coming down, or shooting star should I say. The shooting star comes back in, but now we can see we've got this liquidity area here, and what's significant about this part here is how low price actually is. So you can see from the last sort of 6 years, this is sort of the lowest price has got. And now we can see we've got the one touch, two touch, three touch, broke through, and now we've got this break trend line here, and now we've got this fake up, and then you can see here sort of how massively the momentum shifted. So once we had this sort of massive candle, all this bullish movement sort of pulled out, and now we sort of come with this candle here. Now you can see the complete opposites happen with this candle here. So now you can see complete rejection, break through the trend line. So now if we go onto the daily, we can actually see a bit clearer. So we've had sort of this fake out here, which if we would put a Fibonacci on, I can see that we're probably going to be looking at the golden pocket region. Yep, exactly. So you can see here we've had this golden pocket rejection, and we've come back down, reversed back into the pattern, but now we've broke out again. So now what I'm looking for is price to sort of give us that retest off of this liquidity area here. So as you can see, we've had sort of a slight rejection of the 50 EMA as well. Come back down to the trend line, and then I'm going to look for longs. So you can see here, same as the NZD USD, I've got my 4 different take profits, and these are based off of these significant levels. So the first one we can see is for around 120 pips, which is a fair sort of region. So this one is because we have this sort of significant level here of resistance. We can see sort of a trend line that's developed here as well. So what I'm going to be looking for after that is the TP2, which is going to be our next touch of the horizontal ray here, and sort of the second touch of our trend line. So that'll be our TP2 for 293 pips. And then if we really want to look at taking this long term, we can actually look for this TP3, which is this next significant touch for around 300 pips, and potentially if we was to get a massive move of the Australian dollar and some real strength come into it, we've got a 600 pip move here, which isn't unrealistic, but we sort of make sure to take major profits at TP1, so more at TP2, have most of our position taken out at TP3, and then if we have sort of enough, we can move on to the TP4 with the tiny bit running risk free. So now moving on to a pair that's very similar to AUD CAD, we're going to move on to AUD Swiss. So AUD Swiss, we can actually see, the same as before, price is very, very low. It's actually the lowest it's ever been. So as we can see, the all-time low, and we can see this sort of, we have this trend line here. This one's sort of more significant, this is more recent. And as we come down onto the weekly, we can see this channel that's developed. So we have this channel here, price sort of been up, very impulsive and corrective. It's been quite messy, but we did get this massive move to the downside, and now this is where I'm looking for buys. Because as you can see, at an all-time low, we've got multiple wicks. We've got 1 wick, 2 wick, 3 wick, and then what I'm looking for now is a move up to this trend line here. So from here, we've got about, what's that, about 200 pips. So about 180 pips, 200 pips. If we get to this level, then we can look at taking this long for long term. Because as we can see here, if we do break out of this channel, we've got a massive, massive potential. We're talking thousands of pips, which would be massive. However, obviously we need to look at both possibilities. We could just see another lower low formed, so could get another lower high. If we manage to break through and we need to aim for this sort of level here, then we can look at longs potentially. But for now, we can look just to sort of come up to this trend line. So it's about 0.69650. If we get that, then we look for either move downwards, takes a lot of our profit here, either move downwards, or we look for a break, come up to sort of a level around sort of 0.709, and then we look for a retest, and then we want to go further. For this one, it's not really one of the ones that I'm majorly looking at, but I do want to be aware that we are at an all-time low, so something very, very good for buying opportunities, and the risk reward is of course there. So now we're going to move on to AUD/JPY. As I said before, I went through this as well. I went to it last week. So just to go through it quickly for those who wasn't here, we can see obviously the short didn't go sort of as far as I wanted it to. We've had another retest, but potentially here we can either see a retest and the movement down to the 70 level, or we could see a breakthrough, and then if we can get above this sort of level here, then we've got massive, massive buying opportunities coming in. But my main focus here is sort of the short. If we can get along, then of course that'll be great, as there's much more potential, but we need to let the market show us its hand in a sense, and if we do see sort of a major rejection of this trend line, then I'll be looking for shorts. If we get a breakthrough, a retested trend line, then I'll be looking for longs. So now I'm going to move on to CAD/JPY. This one, the move's already sort of gone, but I believe we can get a nice little scaling if anyone wants to get into it. So you can see here, quite a simple one. We've got this sort of trend line developed, and then you can see we've had this little break and a perfect retest. So you can see very nice retest on the 4 hour, retested, come down, and then we've got this massive sort of series of moves. So we've got 1 move here, 2 move here, 3 move here, and then within that move we've got about 81.6 down to 80, so about 120 pips within about 3 hours. So a massive move that I did call last week as well. But from here, what we look for is we can look for the retest of this level here. The reason why I have this level marked out is because we have sort of a nice sort of bit of liquidity going on here, nice bit of support and resistance, and of course we've had this fake out. So we've sort of faked out, tested it, come back, and now I want to look for a major move to the downside. So I want to sort of fulfill the rest of this trend line, and if you can get a retest, I'd like to take it from about 80.5 down to about 78.5. Of course, we might not get the retest, and we might also make a move to the upside. But I do believe if we get a retest here, or sort of around this level here, then I believe we can get a nice short. Moving on to Euro CAD, we can see once again sort of something common between the Euro pairs. We've got sort of a trend line that's developed and we've now broken out. However, with this one, it seems like it's almost ready. So we've had this break of the trend line here, retested this significant level here. You can see quite a nice sort of support level. Now we've come up, massive rejection, and now I'm looking for sort of that long up to the next significant level. So if we can get sort of TP1 here at 1.47, I'm just readjust this yet. So sort of 1.47 would be my first target, which would be about 130 pips. Then the next one would be 1.485, and then of course at the top. But you can see here we've had sort of this double bottom on the trend line, which is quite important. Or sort of double bottom here, massive move to the upside. Now we've got this double bottom here, massive move to the upside. So now if we can get a retest on this monthly trend line as well, so I'll come back out. We can see here sort of the wedge that's formed. So sort of massive potential here, as you can see from 1908, and then from here we've got sort of 2011. If we can get this sort of fake out off, and then through this trend line, if we go back onto the weekly, I'm looking for this to come back in as we've done, and then we could potentially go further. So as you can see on the weekly, it's important because from here we can see there's a lot of potential within the market. However, if we go back on the daily, we can see it doesn't sort of typically look that sort of large. However, I'm pretty confident with this one. So if we can come down, retest, which we might have done already, and then come up. Next one's euro pound, which is actually something I looked at last week, and the analysis is still sort of the same because we've sort of come to the same level after some consolidation. So you can see here, pretty simple for this one. We've got the one touch here, start it off, two touch, and then we've got this third touch here, and you can see price hasn't broke out, sustained that above. What we've had is we have one touch, two touch, three touch, four touch of the trend line before sort of creating these wicks. So you can see here liquidity area. Here we've got a supply zone, which means that sellers are going to come into the market. And then what this will mean is because there's more supply within the market, it means price will come down because there's more of it. So what we're going to look for here is I'm actually in this trade already, but even now, to be fair, market open, we can see sort of how the euro acts with sort of a number of pairs that we're looking at. But we can sort of look for an entry sort of straight away. I don't really like entering on Sunday or Monday, but we can get one here. So you can see third touch of trend line, liquidity area here, 0.382 fib, which is always quite important to look at our fib levels just to get an idea of what might happen. And also we can see the 50 EMAs acting quite nicely with resistance here. You can see we haven't had a break above, and until we sort of have a massive break up, I wouldn't really look for longs right now. But of course, the important thing we have to look at here is we have only got sort of 2-3 weeks till Brexit, which could sort of be massive here. So, but for now, I'm looking for a short. I'm looking for some pound strength. Now we move on to the euro US dollar. So euro US dollar, sort of quite sort of impulsive to the downside at the moment. Let's go back into the weekly. It's a bit clearer here. Move these. So you can see here, we're stuck in this channel currently. So we've been in this channel for about a year now, and you can see we've had multiple touches from the bottom and the top, and then sort of more recently, if we move on to the daily, we've got this trend line here. So you can see from here, if you just readjust that, we've got one touch here, two touch, three touch, and then we're sort of back into this weekly support of 1.1. 1.1. So now what I'm going to look for is the two possibilities. Either we reverse out of this liquidity area here, of this 1.1 after this sort of series of rejections, and then what I'll be looking for is a short, sort of down for this another touch of this bottom descending trend line. Or if we can break through, like we're going to look at Euro CAD, we could break through, come back, retest the weekly support and the liquidity area for quite a nice long with nice confluences. But like I said, we need to be looking for both sort of possibilities. Euro US dollar, it's not really clean at the moment. Obviously we've got sort of this price action here, impulsive up, impulsive down. Now maybe being a bit of correction before we get another impulsive move to the downside. Now I'm going to look at pound Australian dollar. This setup I had last week, and I actually entered around here 1.87. However, as you can see, price will come up for about 100 pips and then came straight back down to this trend line. So I got a nice bit of profit off of that. But now I'm sort of looking to come in again. So that's still the same. We've got sort of this trend line here, one touch, two touch, third touch we broke through, retested. It looked like quite a nice long, but now what we've done is we've actually developed this double bottom. So we've got sort of this level here, this level, and you can see straight away rejection off of this liquidity area. So this time it's the demand zone, which means that buyers come into the market as price is quite low. They want to get into the market at quite a nice price. So my first sort of major thing here would be if we can get a sort of a nice rejection off of here. So if we go down to the 4 hour, you can see here we've got exactly what we'd want. We've got this. So you see last week we had this sort of retest. Now what we're looking for is this exact pattern. So what I'd look for here, if we can get a bullish emerging candle, we've got our morning star pattern, which is reversal patterns to buy. If we can get that, then I'll be looking to take this one back up to 1.3383 will be my first target for about 120 pips. And then, as you can see, if we come out, because of where the trend line started, we can see we haven't had many touches. After that, we have got sort of a massive move to the upside potential. So about another 400 pips roughly, 440 pips. So you can see here is quite a nice sort of position to be in. But like I said before, with Brexit coming up, this might be sort of something we only look to get a couple hundred pips out of. Now we're moving on to GBP USD, two sort of currencies that have been quite shaky. As you can see, sort of the price action hasn't been the cleanest. We've had this trend line come up, tested monthly resistance, come back down. But me and Abdul actually picked out sort of a buying opportunity last week. So if we come down, we can actually see, so we've got these wicks that come in here, multiple wicks, but my key sort of bit that I want to look at is here. So we've had this break, retested significant sort of support on the 0.71, but also we've got the golden pocket retracement as well. And as you can see, straight away we've reversed out of that and now gone into a nice profit of around 50 pips, or about 45 pips. I don't really like trading this pair, but the opportunity was there, the confidence was there, and I was pretty confident with it. So you see, broke trend line, retested liquidity area, golden pocket, and price also failed to break this week. This support with two fake outs. So now if we can get sort of this movement up to 1.24030, which is a significant level for this pair, that would be quite a nice sort of 120 pip move. Sorry, a nice 120 pip move. And then potentially we can come up to our minus 0.27 Fibonacci for another sort of 600 pips. And our next sort of major level would be our monthly resistance of 1.25. However, with Brexit, I'm not really sure if we're going to get there. So now we're going to move on to NZD CAD. So with this pair, just sort of the same as before, it's just at a very, very low level in terms of support held since 2013. I actually called this one last week, but there sort of wasn't too much there apart from this significant support level. You can see we have sort of flaked out, come back in, and now what I'm looking for is for us to actually come back in and now retest, or sorry, get back into this trend. So if we retest there, we might be looking for short opportunities even further down, which obviously will have massive potential. On the other hand, if we break sort of above this level, then what we're going to be looking for is something like this, and then potentially if we can get that retest, we're going to be looking to take it long up to this channel. So if we just extend this channel, yeah, like that. So you can see here we can either get short for pretty much sort of a clean 180 pips, or we can go long and get sort of a massive 400 pips, which would be nice either way. Like I said, this one sort of not too many confluences, but it's just important to see where price is at within the current market. Now we're looking at NZD USD. So like I said earlier, we had sort of this nice short that I had with about 125 pips that was given to the Slack community and my personal members group. So you can see here the reason for the short was liquidity zone, sellers coming into the market, the break counter trend line, double top on the liquidity area, and then the 4-hour evening star to just sort of give us that entry. Now sort of back onto the monthly, we can see sort of the significant level. So pretty much since 2001, we've had this trend line develop. And as we know, the third touch is significant, and that's why I sort of was really looking for a long here. We can see liquidity area here. Price didn't sort of get down too far, which is sort of what I was looking for, just sort of this touch here. We sort of got in sort of really, really nicely. So anyone who did get in this from my sort of shout out on my Instagram or on my, I think I did it on the Slack community as well, but I did it in my members group. You can see here we got a very, very nice entry with about 25.8 pip stop loss. So this was just below sort of the last trend line and the last key level, about 10 pips below. And as you can see, like I said before, massive potential. So if we sort of look here, we've got about 90 pips in profit at the moment. But what I'm looking for now is a nice sort of clean retest of this key level of 0.63. So if we can get a nice retest here, people who aren't currently in this trade, you might be able to look for long opportunities within the market. Of course, anyone who's in it already will be looking sort of currently around 90 pips, as I said, and we could potentially look to go for our TP1 at 0.64435. I'm quite confident with this key level here. Sort of a key level I've always sort of noticed price sort of come to over the last few months. And then obviously we have got a massive opportunity if we can sort of really break out of that level here. So a massive potential move. I'll be looking to hold this one as much as I can, potentially 500 pips. You can see price is very low at the moment, so I'm looking for at least 0.64368, and then anything above this we could go really, really high. Next, we've got USD CAD and USD JPY. So just sort of quickly go through these last two. Don't want to keep you guys too long. We've got sort of this first trend line here that I want to look at. Is this left trend line here. So as you can see on the weekly, we've got quite a nice move. As you can see, impulsive move to the upside. Corrective move to the upside after this big impulsive move. And then you can see we've got this retest here and then come back down. Now we sort of had something similar. So what we've had here is we've had this sort of trend line develop, break through this trend line, retested quite nicely, sort of a small move to the downside, but now we're sort of going to look to catch this one big. So you see liquidity zone here, look to come down, break through this trend line potentially. You can sort of get in with this entry here. I personally wouldn't. I'd look for sort of a safer entry. However, you can look at it as a break of trend line, retest, then a double top. If we extend this liquidity area, we can actually see sort of more wicks over here as well. With this double top forming, you could look for a sort of an entry around this level now, and then by the time you get to the trend line, you're already looking at about a couple hundred pips. However, long term, I want to see a massive rejection off of here, whether we can get a candlestick pattern or just something sort of really sort of signal for the long. We have also got this 50 EMA that price is currently sitting on, so if we can close below the 50 EMA, it would be quite nice. We have the fake out here. If we can break below that and then come through, retest, break through this trend line, retest, we have got a massive opportunity for the shorts. And obviously with the trade talks with China, obviously in Trump's tweets, we don't know what's going to happen with the dollar a lot of the time, but we can sort of look for a nice short here. And then finally, we're going to look at USD JPY. Like I said before, I traded this one last week. I believe Max gave this to the community. I actually gave this one in Slack on Sunday, but I don't think many people saw it, so it was nice that Max sort of reiterated that and got us in that trade. So what I'm looking at here, obviously we've got this double top that we got in for, and we got in for the short. However, what I want to see now is I want to look for a long. I'm not currently in the trade anymore. I've closed it. My only open positions are Euro Pound, Pound USD, and New Zealand dollar long. And now what I'm just sort of looking for is this test of this trend line here, and it's sort of to really push up higher. Is there any other pairs that anyone wants to look at? I know I've covered quite a few pairs here, but obviously if anyone else wants me to look at any specific pairs, I can do that. If you want to, yeah, there was some massive moves last week, wasn't there? We caught quite a nice pips between us. I think that's the important thing for everyone to sort of understand, that although obviously we give out sort of this analysis, that it's sort of about giving you your own entry points. So like I obviously went through quite a few pairs there, but I might not necessarily get into every pair, but it's having that sort of ability to get into these different types of pairs. So of course, I might be in 3 trades at once, and I don't look to go for any more than 3 trades. If I do, then I'll make sure I've got other trades risk-free or most of my profit taken out. But apart from that, guys, that's everything I was looking to cover. If there's nothing else that anyone would like to ask, hope it's been really helpful, sort of helped you guys out. It's been nice to sort of get a few of you in, sort of all familiar faces. And if that's it, guys, I'll sort of catch you later.